Well, good morning, ladies,
Good morning.
and welcome to Ms. Gonzalez to our meeting.
Thank you.
I'm so excited to have you here on board with us today. I want to shout out Ms. Webb right now because the last time we met, we had 90%. We went from 90% accuracy to 98% accuracy. So,
Yeah.
right. So yeah. And we also talked about how the students were mastering that skill pretty well, and you also told me that you were doing more specific redirecting and small group with different strategies and tools for the kids.
Mm-hmm.
So that gave us that piece, right? So today, we are going to be looking at some different standards, and the focus is adding and subtracting within 1,000, right?
Yes.
And we're going to be looking at checkpoint A. So, how do you think this checkpoint went for the students?
Well, I feel like a lot of them, their proficiency went down.
Oh, and why do you think that?
I think just going back to something that it's been a little while since we've done, just more simple addition and subtraction. And I say more simple, we're getting into much larger numbers. I think it's just been a minute since we've done just kind of this process a little bit, and so I think it's taken a minute to hop in. And I think some of the kids are definitely getting, I have a couple that are getting thrown by seeing the need for regrouping, which not every problem we look at right now has regrouping, but many do. Some of them are thrown by it. They understand like that what they're doing isn't working because there's too many or not enough or whatever. And then I have other students who are just doing all the typical things, like if you have something that says like 3 minus 4, they'll just say 1 because the difference between those numbers is 1, but you can't, they're not commutative.
Right.
So I mean, some of the issues are pretty easy to see what the confusion is, and so I'm already trying to work on some of that. But definitely getting into when you start doing regrouping and stuff, it's I think it's really developmental, and like sometimes they're ready for it, and sometimes if their math reasoning and understanding isn't as developed yet, they're just not always ready for it. But like the curriculum moves at the pace the curriculum moves, and you have to start trying to muddle your way through.
And that's how the reteach is an important piece to that, to help those students that are still not ready at the proficiency level. So yes.
Yeah.
So let's look at our exemplar. So I have mine, and I that's yours, right? So this is mine.
Okay.
I was like, I'll get it to you. Okay, so in our exemplar, we both did the number line. If you know, well, I'll tell you in a second. Go ahead, but just notice similarities and differences in that.
Yeah. I think we did it pretty much the same way.
I think one of the things that I did, and then I changed it, was that I also started with the 476, so I can go up. But the question is subtraction. So then I know that in one of our previous discussions, we were noticing that the students are having difficulty with the subtraction. So they were able to add up on the number line, but adding back was, more challenging for them. So then I said, well, no, let me do it from the back to the front, showing that subtracting of the hundreds, subtracting of the tens, just to see if the students were able to do that, because I know that you addressed that in the lessons, and I wanted to see if the students, or how many of the students would be able, to do that number line, because that was an area to work on. So
yeah.
So in my chart, in my no-show chart, I'll let you see it in a second, right? So I put down, I looked at the IM. I was so excited that have been able to get into the IM platform.
Oh, good, yeah.
To do, because I was thinking, well, maybe it's the like the teachers, log and whatever, but I was able to see for myself. So I'm just looking at
good.
what it is that the students were able to do, and then figure out that the students were missing some of the strategies, just like you have pointed out with that regrouping.
Yeah.
So we're looking at the same kind of thing. In my exemplar, I use the breaking down of the hundreds, tens, and ones, which is one of the strategies that the student has been looking at. Ms. Gonzalez, do you also find that the students
are we talking about the expanded
form?
Yeah, the expanded form.
Yes.
That one I think sets them up the best for noticing and knowing what to do with the regrouped numbers, because it shows you them as they haven't been regrouped, so that you can see that total next to the others, and it's easier to see how they need to, like if 90 plus 30 is 120, how that only 20 can go here because this is a 10 spot, that other 100 is going to have to go over here. Like, I think it visually sets it up to make that trading process easier.
Yeah.
But so many of my kids are not wanting to, they're wanting to do the river method, the carroting.
Yeah, with the carrot.
And they get themselves confused, and they get it so tight. Like, I try to show when I do it, like I spread those little carrots out to like expand it, and they just, that's just not how they do
Are
it.
you using that also?
I
The
do
strategy
The carroting.
with the carrot?
Like that,
So
yeah.
I would not have introduced it. River uses it, and so we talk about it because she uses it. And if there's no regrouping, it works great.
Right. But
if there's regrouping,
a lot of kids become confused.
They get very bogged down in, and and because they do it so tightly together.
So why do you think that they are not understanding that regrouping process, that method of regrouping?
I mean, I have so many kids that'll do like,
I'm not really sure.
like this, like if it's 592 plus, I don't know, let's say 3.
Because I was thinking about it, do you think that is because they're not understanding like the facts maybe, and like they need more practice on the turnaround facts to do, the addition, subtraction, turnaround facts, so that they can build that fluency? Could that be a concern there?
I don't know, because again, just in all the years I've been doing this, it's developmentally hard for the kids who don't have good place value understanding, don't have good number sense. This is always tricky. So like, this is something like where like a kid like Diego would see, if you put these together using that carroting method, like he would see that like that's
the hundreds.
Yeah, the hundreds is like big there, but he might do something like this: 8, 1, 3, 3. Because he's like, I took that 0 and put it over here, and like I think he knows this isn't right, but he doesn't know
how to correct it.
Correct. Yes. Like he has enough sense to know that like this doesn't look right to him, but he doesn't know what to do with it because he doesn't have enough sense of what these numbers actually mean, which is the reason I like them to expand it out.
Yeah, I
it's
also
easier to
like
see
that process too. I really do.
And that's a strategy that building it out and expanded and working by place value is something I had never done until IM. I mean, I guess I had done it. I had done it in other ways, but I had never like so explicitly expanded each number and put them together like that. And I really like that. Like I did it last year with IM2 for second grade, and I was like, oh, this breaks it down into such a visual step by step that I really I'm a fan of that.
I think it's a good way to represent that thinking, because the kids are not understanding that the 500 and the 500 are hundreds. There's like 5 and 5 is 10.
Correct.
And so that understanding, and I can see that here with our student. I chose this little friend.
He's my one, as I did my goal also.
Yeah, I was pretty much concerned on why he was so low. So I was happy that he actually attempted to use the number line, where a lot of the
Yeah, a
students
lot of kids just
didn't
ignored
do
it.
the number line. And I wanted to address that because here it said if you want,
Yeah, it doesn't
use
make
the
them-
number line. So it was maybe, to me, maybe not giving the option, like crossing that if. It's like you have to use the
Yeah.
number line
Use the
so
number line
that
to
you
model
are
it.
able to see how the students are attending to precisions based on the place value, because they're adding and subtracting within the thousands. But I looked at Kaylin, and based on your exemplar, you know, he actually started in the correct way.
Yeah, he started the way
doing
you were
the
saying.
subtractings, right? So following the language of the example, but then it was like,
didn't know what to do with
what
it.
do I do here? So it was like an idea, but not precision.
Correct. He didn't know what to do with it, but he knew what to like, kind of have a start.
Right.
Yeah, like he was heading in the right direction, but he doesn't know what to do with it.
Right. And then when I looked down here at the others, these are just simple expressions. You know, how do you see, you know, him doing these? I didn't see any of the
He did,
strategies.
well, and he tried to show it.
there.
He tried to turn it into me with just the number, like just the answers.
Mhm.
And I said, I was like, well, I need to see how you worked it out. You have to show me a strategy. So that's when he went and wrote those. But I counted it, and then I thought it in my brain. Which
Well,
is
I
not
like
a
that
strategy.
he actually wrote down, you know, this is what I'm
Yes.
doing,
Yeah.
as opposed to not. But as
I didn't pay attention to what that says. I counted back ends.
right, and then
Back,
it says
I think it's supposed to say
in-
backwards, maybe, but
backwards.
back ends. That's a
Right.
cute way to say backwards.
So, and
I need to
then
back ends up.
then for the partial, I took a look at Jules.
Okay.
So at first I was like, wow, this is, you know, it's really specific, because she was able to decompose the 100, 10s, and 1s, which is one of the strategies that they're supposed to be doing, right? And she put the little lines so that she would be able to remember them, and she was pretty successful on the two bottom ones, but I don't know what happened here on this
I mean,
top one. What do you?
Well,
what do
I
you think?
know what happened. This is part of the reason they need to have multiple strategies. So what she did was she was trying to do that, expanding it out. So she did 600 plus 0 10s plus 0 1s, you know, and then 400 plus 70 plus 6. And I hate that they used 600. I wish they would have done 599 minus,
Right.
you know, and that's something I need to teach the kids. We
Yes.
haven't really addressed it much yet, that zeros in the 1s and 10s place are some of the hardest things to deal with.
Yes.
So I need to, the best strategy I have for it is, and I hate to say this because they do need to learn how to borrow, and they need to learn how to use the algorithm correctly once they have an understanding of what it's doing. But one of my favorite strategies to teach them for that is just to avoid it altogether. And I would say -1 from 600, so it's 599, and then I would either make this 475, or I would just say at the very end you have to add that one back. That way they can just avoid the regrouping. It solves that problem. But it doesn't teach them then
Yeah.
how to do the
How to do
regrouping.
it.
So I mean, it's a bit of a cop out, but it is an effective strategy. So it's like I kind of, you know, I have mixed feelings about teaching it to them. I think what I would do with this test is, and I don't know that we ever practiced one that had a 0 in both. We practiced some that had zeros in
Yeah,
the 1s
at the
place
end
or in the
middle.
10s place, yes. But never one that was a flat hundreds. I mean, I almost just want to change that and make it be, you know, 6, 10,
So then maybe making those accommodations might be, you know, the next step in the reteach, right? So looking at that, so we've been talking about that, and then the full mastery, we see, you know, Hazel, she also did hers from an addition, the subtraction standpoint. I think she was gonna do like addition and subtraction, so there was some kind of you know, confusion, but at least she was able to count accurately. So
I was
accuracy
trying to figure out what she did here at first, but I see she counted back by these numbers.
right.
By 6, which that's actually a kind of hard way to do it. I'm impressed that she
Mhm.
did that. I hadn't looked at her specifically.
So I just thought that she had it.
That shows
You know,
a really good understanding of those numbers, that she can
of
go
the
from
values.
597 back 70. Like, that's good.
Right. So based on these, and Ms. Gonzalez, you could take a look at these particular ones. So what do you think is the gap that we see in the procedure and in the concept of the children for a possible reteach?
It's just dealing with the regrouping entirely. Like, that is the issue here.
So because they are not understanding how to borrow and regroup,
Mm-hmm.
then they're not being successful at
Yes.
that
Because
accuracy and
this one,
precision.
2A, so many kids got this one right when they got nothing else right. And this one was addition
Right.
without regrouping. It's like just numbers that are simple to put together, like they could do that into millions. Like, it's simple. It's not the math, it's the procedures around the regrouping and stuff that some of them are getting very confused with.
Exactly.
So in this unit, it breaks it down. Section A was just kind of an intro, and then Section B that we're working on right now has been all addition, and then Section C will be all subtraction. And in addition, the regrouping is getting some of them confused still, but I feel like the confusion is not as bad as it's going to be. It's going to get uglier before it gets better, because regrouping with subtraction is harder. It's easier to regroup forward. It's
Right.
harder
Go
to
back.
regroup back.
Did you find that with your students
Yes.
too?
Absolutely. Parents at home are teaching them to borrow, but then they're borrowing and getting confused. So the expanded form helps them understand what exactly it is they are borrowing from. But then, like the 0 being the top number, the 600, that's very confusing.
So it's so hard. It's
Because
hard.
then they have to go over all the way to the hundreds to borrow from there to make enough for the ones place.
Right.
And then you have to make that the 10's place a 10, and then you have to make it a 9. It's so hard.
Right.
Like, it is so hard.
Yeah, it is. And one of the things that I saw here, and I had this one for partial. So I know that they're using the diagrams to help them understand the method, but I also noticed that they were confused and made errors to doing this diagram as well. One thing that I've done before was I always have the kids write down the numbers of this is 100, 200, and just write it out, because in some of them I saw that the ones, that regrouping with the ones, it got thrown, So when you guys are doing the different strategies, what other supports do you see that the students are using to work on this particular method?
I haven't modeled that method for them as much, because when they have to start trading back and forth, it just gets messy, and drawing it out gets big. Like when you're doing 600s and stuff, it just takes a lot of space up and stuff. And I feel like one of the things we've talked about before is, like, when they don't make their base 10 blocks, the representation of them neat, they get confused because they thought they drew 5 10s, and then they scratch out 3 and they only notice 1, and they just get lost in it. And so as the numbers get bigger, I start trying to move them away from drawing it out, which is why I'm trying to use the expanded notation and stuff. I think developmentally, some of them still do kind of need that visual representation, but I feel like the ones that are lower on their place value and number sense are also some of my ones that just tend to be more messy and more scattered, and so they're the ones that really struggle to represent it neatly
and accurately.
Exactly. Like, the ones who have a better understanding of it also represent it in a neater format and are less likely to get confused. So it's like, I don't really know what to do with that. When I pull them up here, we get the actual base 10 blocks out and work with those, and that works good. I guess what I need to maybe work on is us practicing using the base 10 blocks, like the actual ones, but then showing them how that commutes to expanded form. so that
So
maybe
there's
they'll
a bridge.
yeah, so maybe they can
between
start
the
bridging,
visual
and like in their brain
and the
they
number.
can see the actual blocks without actually having to draw them on their paper. Like that way they're connecting that to the expanded
So
notation.
you would use that strategy or that method for a reteach?
Maybe to try to support that. I mean, I'm just thinking of that right now, because that's just such a hard thing to connect for them. I'm not sure what to do to help them, again, because they like that visual representation, which I get. I understand why it is comforting for them, but they just get it's so messy that then it doesn't work because it's so messy.
So those diagrams, and I know that you give them a good example of how to organize it and how to circle it. I don't know, maybe even something as simple as a different sheet, like a different format on the sheet where they have more space can be helpful. But I would say like the diagrams, and then you were saying connecting those diagrams to
the expanded notation strategy, so that like they visually have moved it around, but what they show on the paper is not the pictures of what they've done, it's the numerical representation of it.
Ms. Gonzalez, how would you do a reteach for those students that are pretty much looking like this in your group?
I'm not really sure where to go. A lot of the misconception in my room is just refusing to use the strategies that I've taught. They are stuck with the strategy that they've used before. The base 10 blocks were confusing with double digits, so I haven't shown the 3-digit numbers at all with the base 10 blocks.
It just gets so busy.
We're also very confused, even I am confused with the number line method. For the kids that were struggling with the number line, most of them like the expanded form better. They are able to understand it better because they're not figuring out how many jumps to do. So
that pattern.
So some people are, once they do that 100 jump, they want to do another 100 jump, but they don't realize that they've passed the number that they needed to reach.
So it's that to me is like a counting, a disconnect with the counting. It's like, okay, I'm not understanding how to count by tens.
Count by this, and where do I land, and how much more. What else could I skip count by to get to my actual number? Or just remembering what number I need to stop at.
Right. So when the small groups, right there, what you just said is key, right? Where I'm like, okay, this is my example. Now, let's do it, right? One of the things that I like about the IM is that it has the number talks like right built into it. So you can take one of the number talks and then just use the number line and see how they do it with a smaller one, and then go to a double digit and then see how they would do it. So it would be like scaffolded, by level of ones, tens, and hundreds to see if they find some kind of commonality in that strategy. That might be helpful to them. One of the things that I was doing, I was looking at the Khan Academy just to see.
They have some good videos.
Right, how to do it. So maybe a small group, after you give them like that reteach, then have them look at a video or whatnot. And I don't know if on this computer, I know one of the teachers in another building, they actually took the base 10 blocks on the smart board. Do you guys know?
So I know that they're there. I don't actually use the smart board, those functionalities very much. I just haven't ever taken enough time to play with it. I just don't have time to play with it. To just sit and play with the features
The kids
on it.
found it, but I don't know where they found it.
I'm trying to see if I can just find it real quick, because I do think I know what you're talking about.
It was so much like, I was like, wow, when I saw it. But then I thought, with the IM, I'm new to the IM and whatnot, but that is so cool for the kids to see that visual on the smart board. And like you were saying, with the larger numbers, since it gets busy, maybe having them look at that and just supporting your English language learners
Yeah.
but also supporting those kids that need that number sense, like you were both addressing, as a part of that reteach, so that mini lesson can be up there, and then you cross it out, and they can sort of see it a little bit in a different way and have those conversations. Yes. So
Pretty fancy.
right?
That is.
And then you can write on that, you know what I'm saying? Well, that's the 310s and 300s, and like if you cross out this and so that might be a great tool for that reteach piece. And then you could use that, you know, also for the number line, you know what I'm saying? And it's like, hey, you found the number line, and then just you go up on it, so that we look at the reteach through a different lens, and then allow the kids, you know, something different.
So we just literally, it's so frustrating. We just don't always have the time to like.
Or I wish we would have had an actual training.
I know we never did. These just got installed overnight. Like we came in one day.
Change the numbers on those?
I don't know if that's just a standard one, and you could modify it, like make it like 0 and this be 50, 100. You know, I'm not sure. I've never played with it. I just have seen clips of teachers teaching. So I mean, I knew that it existed. I've never played with it before. Literally, it's the first time I pulled it up.
Right.
These are such great tools, and I was so comfortable with my old smartboard because we used to use that smart notebook software,
right.
And they moved to this new different software, which is probably better. It's probably, you know, hugely improved. But I feel like I had spent years learning and creating lessons and stuff in that smart notebook, and this is just so different. And I just haven't, you know, it's like I literally installed them like on a Tuesday night. Like we left work on Tuesday, and all old stuff was here, and we came in the next day, and we had new boards, and like we had to like try to figure out how to. We had already started going in and started trying to figure out like how do I get my morning slides up and stuff. But I mean, we've just never had proper training on how these work. We've all muddled our way through and figured out how to make it work for us.
Right.
But as far as like the functionality and like that Lumio that's connected to it, I think that's kind of the newer smart notebook.
That Lumio is new.
And it's
good, but you like everything has to be worked on.
I think we need some training. Like we need to see some like example lessons so that we kind of get a feel for like what could we use it for. We've got enough techie people at this school. Like if we started seeing some stuff, people would start figuring it out.
Yeah, definitely.
I for one would. I love technology stuff, but I mean you get so overwhelmed with like they got thrown at us overnight. We had to keep teaching, so it's like we just started muddling our way through. And then when you sort of figure out band-aids and workarounds. And then you just kind of get stuck in doing things the way you're doing them, and you never go back and go like, what else could this do?
Right. So then what I'm hearing is that there are lots of resources that we can use for reteach. We just need to navigate them.
Well, there's probably a ton that are already created that we can just go find and download somebody else's lesson
and help us, because I think sometimes when we're looking at reteach, I know that. I sometimes like, okay, I'm just going to do this a little bit slower, but it's not doing it slower. Sometimes it's using different resources.
Using different approaches.
Different approaches to actually getting the students onto, you know, thinking about something different, and us as well.
Right.
You know, for us to be thinking about something different. So I know that our time is up. I thank you for thinking about these new tools that we can use for our reteach. So I'm looking forward to seeing what the next checkpoint
we're going to actually work on it
would see. And then if you would just show me what the reteach looks like.
Okay.
Trying to use one of these resources.
Sure.
For our next time. I'm sorry. So thank you guys.
No problem.
I appreciate it.
I'm going to actually go create a little